went to VidCon and cool things happened and I'm terrible at taking pictures, so I made an animation instead because let's face it, cartoons are just better. So here are some of my favorite highlights from my trip to VidCon 2018. Hey, so there was a lot that happened this year. Too much, in fact, to cram into one video. I took a poll and the majority of you said you wanted a two-part special, so that's what we're doing. Also, I had to structure the video differently this year to get everything in, so I'm sorry to all of my lightning round fans. We're still gonna have fun, so here we go, my first two-parter VidCon recap. Day 1. My brother David and I arrived on Wednesday and immediately went to lunch with Danebo and the Annoying Orange Gang. It was great to see them all again, but Dane was starting to feel a little blue that he wasn't going to VidCon this year. I kept telling him he could still buy a ticket, but he just shrugged and said, nah. We said goodbye to the Annoying Orange Gang and then later went over to the Cheesecake Factory to have dinner with James, Adam, and Ryder. Everyone but me and David was late! Tisk tisk, this won't do it all. So yet again, I put our names in for the table. I'm still so helpful! They all eventually arrived and we sat down for dinner. At the table, Ryder exploded his soda everywhere and James let me see a copy of his new book. After dinner, we all wanted to see The Incredibles 2. I was sitting in the theater beforehand while the guys were out getting us all slushies, and that's when Dane texted me and said he'd bitten the bullet and was gonna get a ticket for VidCon. And I was so happy! I then watched The Incredibles 2 sitting between James and Adam, which was hilarious because both of them have the best reactions ever. And afterwards, we all geeked out about the animation and lighting. Day 2! The second day, the plan was to meet as many of you as possible and then go to the big animation community lunch being put on by Alex Clark and his animators. David and I walked around the expo hall all morning meeting you guys, specifically getting caught up about an hour and a half at Jaden's booth. Later, while I was in the main hallway talking to a fan, I got blindsided by Adam and a giant wave of people following him. But it turns out it was the animation community, or at least most of them. We all talked for a bit and then Ryder texted me to come find him. I was power walking over to him when a girl in the crowd did a big ol' lateral slide in front of me to block my path. Apparently I was being a dumb butt that day because I didn't recognize her at first and I thought she was a fan. She gave me a weird look and showed me her badge. It was Tabs. I'm sorry. She had Chili Panda and Billy But Better in tow, so we all went back into the expo hall to catch up with the rest of the animation community, like Cypher Den and Ginger Pale. We were all gathered together in front of the Nickelodeon booth, so we began to draw a bit of a crowd. While I was happily meeting fans, a girl came up to me wearing an employee badge and an earpiece. Uh-oh. Hi, I'm Kristen with VidCon. Are we in trouble? You're not in trouble yet, but we have called security. Uh-oh. We can either set up a space off to the side for you all to do a meet and greet, or we have to escort you out of here. Well, as it turns out, it was almost time for us to go to our big animation lunch anyway, so we ended up getting escorted out by security. We kinda got kicked out of the expo hall. In a nice way. Outside, as we were all calling Lyfts and Ubers to get to the restaurant, Dane texted me to wait for him because he finally got his badge and wanted to go with me to the lunch. Aw yeah, just gonna casually bring a YouTube legend with me. No biggie. We got to the restaurant and so many animators were there. Rabaka-chan, Sugar, Dom, Life Noggin, Ginger Pale, Cypherton, Tabs, Chili Panda, everyone! Here's a picture! Look how cool we are! When it was time to go, David, Dane, and I got into an Uber. I was in the front seat with the window rolled down, but Alex wanted one last goodbye before I left. He reached into the car window to give me a hug, and I awkwardly reached out to return it. But in doing so, I hit the side of his face with my hand kinda hard. I accidentally punched Alex Clark in the face. He tweeted about it later. That night was the YouTube party, and this year I had an invitation. Dane also had an invite thanks to iJustine, so we went together. It was very loud, and by the end of the night, it was super crowded, but I did meet some cool people. I met Catherine, who was Markiplier's editor and is now the Crank Gameplays editor. She and I talked like we were old friends, but we were literally screaming in each other's faces because it was so loud. And I finally met Matt, Pat, and Steph. I introduced myself, and their eyes lit up. They said they already knew so much about me because Ryder told them everything. Thanks, Ryder. And now Matt follows me on Twitter. They were both so cool. Day 3! After a morning of walking around the expo hall and meeting more of you, I had a business meeting over at the hotel where all the YouTubers were staying at, and then I was going to the animation community meetup event at 2:30. After the business meeting, David and I were riding on a shuttle back to the convention center at about 12:45 when I got a text from Ryder. He said he was already at the animation community meetup, the room had reached capacity and they'd closed the doors, and there was a line forming outside. He basically said, "You gotta get here now!" So I rushed over to the meetup room and sure enough, they'd closed the doors and there was a line outside. Oscar Animates, who arranged the whole event with VidCon, was talking to the lady in charge and I tried to tell her I needed to get into that room. Oscar was like, yeah, let her in, she's one of the animators. So they begrudgingly opened the door for me. I took 2 steps into that room and got tackled on both sides, and a crowd started forming around me. Maz rushed up to me and said, go sit next to Ryder. Okay. I had no idea what was going on. Apparently, this casual meetup in a room meant for only 80 people had turned into a very large signing event. Everyone had set up tables along the perimeter of the room where the animators would sit, and a line of people would go by and get photos and signatures. We started the event an hour early, and as we met people and signed things, the line outside kept getting longer and longer. At one point, David went outside and took some footage of this line. It was insane. Periodically, Maz, the unofficial MC of the whole event, thank you so much, Maz, for being responsible, would get on a mic and tell us to hurry up and that we only had 30 seconds with each person. At the end of this event that we started an hour early, we got through 500 people and had to turn away 1,500. We were blown away. Oh my gosh, thank you to everyone who waited in that line, and we are so sorry that so many of you didn't get to see us. No one was expecting that kind of turnout. It was incredible, and you guys made us feel so loved and supported. Also, the whole room of animators had to be escorted out the back by security. Later that night was the Studio 71 party. Ryder and I had invites, and I got a wristband for David too. We stayed there for about an hour and a half, but David and I were just so exhausted and our feet hurt, and there wasn't anyone there that we knew, so we kinda got bored and decided to leave. Although, I did get to talk to Anthony Padilla and Pat from Life Noggin on the way out. Not a total loss. Though the real highlight of the night was when we were standing in line to get in, a little girl who was also in line for the party recognized me and asked for a picture. That was pretty cool. Alright, so that should do it for the first half of this VidCon recap. It feels really weird making this into 2 videos. But hey, come back for the thrilling conclusion to hear the story of being backstage at the infamous Animation Squad Q&A panel. Thank you for tuning in, explainers, and I'll be right back.